Welcome to Tech Topics brought to you by Cybervenger. We help keep small businesses stay protected and compliant with cutting-edge cybersecurity and IT solutions.
Hello everyone, my name is Andy, I'm the Managing Consultant for Cybervenger. Today's another deep dive into NIST 800-171. There's 110 controls in that standard, and today we're going to go over, take a look down here, control number 3.13.9. This control says terminate network connections associated with communications sessions at the end of the sessions or after a defined period of inactivity. The idea is very simple, but unfortunately this is kind of a tough control to actually implement. I'll talk about why in a second. So the simple idea is that if you legitimately connect up to something, right? Let's say you, do an SSH session to a switch. That switch should be configured to drop your session if you haven't typed in any new commands in a period of time. It's not exactly clear from the standard they don't specify what period of time you need to do. You should do something that's justifiable. Like if you did 2 weeks, that would probably not be justifiable. But if you did it for an hour, probably a reasonable amount of time. I think there are other standards out there too that are less. You might want to do that. Like if you have PCI data and or high trust or some of these other standards out there, I think they're like 15 minutes. It may be a little aggressive when you're trying to work. 15 minutes seems a little light for me. You get a phone call, you get distracted, try to go back to your thing, and keep going, and I can log in again. I hate that. But an hour is probably a reasonable starting point for most stuff. So if you connect up to a switch with PuTTY and you log in, you should configure that switch to kick you out after an hour of inactivity. Make that your standard, write it down, try and justify the time. Documentation is really important here so that you can show people this is what the timeout is, this is why we do this. Now, here's the challenging part. This applies to all kinds of different things, and you have to sit down and think about what's on your network and try and enumerate, make a giant list of everything, and make sure that that standard is applied everywhere if you can. And if you can't, you have to come up with some kind of mitigating control, some way of enforcing, there's doing some kind of workaround, or maybe the sessions are forcibly terminated or something. So switches, you can kind of do this with firewalls. VPNs, very common. So if you're a road warrior kind of VPN, client to host, you're out at a hotel somewhere and you're at a conference, you want to remote into your office, that VPN session is almost everyone I've ever seen has an option to time it out after a certain amount of time automatically or after inactivity or that kind of thing. So that's another one. An interesting one, though, is, everything applies, right? So if you're using a SaaS program on the internet, you got some cloud services, you oftentimes have less control over that than you would something you built yourself. So you got to kind of make sure that those cloud services, if they're controlling CUI, they would comply with this control as well. So you got to make sure that they can. If they can't, you have to talk to the vendor, see if they can put this a new feature or deal with it somehow. Or maybe move the CUI out of there and move it to an in-house program or to another cloud host provider that can kill the session. And why this is important is, of course, the walk-ups, right? You run to the bathroom, someone walks up behind someone who's not supposed to be accessing the machine, walks up as you, gets in there and has your full access because you're already logged into the session. If you walk away for a while, let's say it's 5-minute timeout, and somebody if you're out for a while and somebody can sneak up, the longer that time period, the more likely they can sneak in and do stuff without it locking. A shorter time period is better. 5 minutes, those, again, it's kind of somewhat unrealistic. But you want to have that extra protection. Now, other controls talk about timeout of the Windows session. So it's not the only control they'll talk about. This whole section seems to be kind of redundant. So, yes, your Windows screensaver should have kicked in 15 minutes or whatever the timeline is, and then someone walks up your computer, shouldn't be able to log in, so your session shouldn't matter. But it's important to have security in layers. If they're repeating it, because it's important. Let's get it layered, because sometimes not only direct access is not the only way to compromise things. Or what if someone does have your desktop password, but they don't have your application passwords? They can leverage your suspended session. So that session itself needs a timeout, not just your desktop, security and layers. Or sometimes your desktop is open and some application is there, and they could leverage maybe a VPN or a connection that's sitting up there. If you have a VPN connection, you have a network, and that computer can go do whatever, especially if it's idle. There are programs and attack methods where they watch your system until you're idle, and then they start doing their thing to not get caught, right? They may wait till you're idle, remote in, do stuff, burn up your CPU, take advantage of your open sessions somehow. So it's possible. It's a little, it doesn't feel very rubber meets the road to me. It's a little esoteric in terms of justification why you do this, but it makes good sense. It's not a hard thing to do for the most part. It's tedious because you have to make sure every device has it. Your UPS, you got to try and dig around and see if your UPS consoles have this setting. You got to dig through, if you get an environmental monitoring system, you got to go to that, see if that does it. Your PDUs, you get a web browser to that and shut it off. Thankfully, this only really applies to CUI. So if you had an enclave, maybe you don't have all these different devices, or they're separated somehow. But you want to try and pick a standard in terms of time and apply it as many places as you can, and document where it's not applied so it's visible. You don't want to just sweep it under the rug, and that's a big, big, big no-no. It's always easy to go, okay, well, we read your documentation, we read your standard, and go, you know what? It's not good enough. We don't like it. Change this. And you could change it and then pass. But if you do this and they find that if you say, oh, you paint a picture of roses and they find all these flaws that weren't documented, that looks really bad, it's much harder to pass and then convince an auditor that you were doing things the right way, especially in the event of a breach and you're trying to, prove to the DOD that you did your due diligence and it's not your fault. So that's basically all I got for this control. You just want your sessions to time out. You don't want to have to wait for something to log off. You want it to be some kind of timely manner, like, a minute or in an hour, or 60 minutes, what I meant to say. And that's all I got for this control. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. We hope this video has provided valuable information to you. Be sure to share this video with other small business owners to spread the word about the importance of cybersecurity. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you want more information about cybersecurity, visit us at www.cybervenger.com.